welcome to the i24 news desk for this special news broadcast. I'm Tracy Alexander. The first Indian Prime Minister ever to visit Israel, landing at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport hours ago. Narendra Modi's first stop is Israel's Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem. We'll take you there live as the ceremony gets underway. But first we go to our correspondent Jordana Miller, who is standing by for us at Yad Vashem. Jordana, is it at all significant that this is Modi's first stop?
Right, that's a great question, Tracy. Israel has stressed that this is such a historic visit, a unique visit, a special visit, and part of the goal of this visit is to really bring together the Israeli and Indian people. And for Israel, part of that is really sharing this very painful chapter in Jewish history with the Indian Prime Minister. We saw the car caravan, all of the cars pull up, so we expect the program will start shortly. It will begin in the Hall of Names. That's the repository where all the known names of the Holocaust victims are kept. Then he will go to the Hall of Remembrance and lay a wreath. That, of course, is where the names of the Nazi death camps are engraved on the ground. And then he will tour the Children's Memorial, 1 million children lost in the Holocaust, and finally sign the guest book there. So this is going to be a very emotional moment. And, of course, in India, it's hard for us to understand, but in India, anti-Semitism is virtually unknown. So to get this kind of history here and to have these images of Modi here at this solemn place disseminated around the world, certainly in the Indian press, is really part of the goal of this stop here. Okay, Jordana Miller, thank you for that report live from Yad Vashem. In fact, we are seeing live images just moments ago of Narendra Modi being led through the Holocaust Museum with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his side. With me in studio, in fact, is Jewish Indian historian and writer Eliaz Dandeker. Eliaz, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Not only are you a Jewish Indian, so you have a lot to talk to us about in terms of your personal experience living here in Israel as an Indian, and as your parents are Indians, I understand as well.
Yes.
That you were born here in Israel.
Indeed, I was born here.
But as well, you are also a historian. Talk us through the significance. Put this visit into context of an Indian Prime Minister visiting the Holocaust Museum here in Israel.
Well, the visit of Narendra Modi is a historic stepping stone in the relations between India and Israel. It's the first official visit of Prime Minister Modi in Israel as Prime Minister. He was here before, several years back, not as Prime Minister, of course. So this is an historic, how should I say it, evolution between the two nations, which their histories or joint histories go back thousands of years.
Certainly, but we know that during World War II, India was led by the British Raj in terms of the battle in World War II. So put this into context for us in terms of an Indian Prime Minister visiting the Holocaust Museum there.
Well, a lot of people don't know is the fact that a lot of Jews was saved by the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, from Nazi-occupied territories in Europe, and they were brought to India, and they assimilated into the local Jewish community, for example. Okay. So, and a lot of Jewish Indian soldiers fought with the British Army, of course, as officers, as soldiers, as combat soldiers, and such and such. Okay. In the European scene, Middle Eastern scene, Pacific scene, etc.
Sure. We're going to pick that up in just a minute. I want to direct our viewers' attention to the live images coming through at the moment inside Yad Vashem. The ceremony is, in fact, getting underway. Onto the left of the screen, you can see a choir who will be singing inside Yad Vashem ceremony. Let's take a listen to what's happening inside the hall there. Okay, it seems that they're getting the last final touches in place before the ceremony is underway. With us in studio as well as our international affairs correspondent, Bianca Zanini. Bianca, talk us through the relationship here with Indians living in Israel. There's a significant population here.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about how this is politically important, but it's also about people-to-people relations that have been good, but really have been improved. And I liked your word, the stepping stone. It's really, people are saying that the next step is flying. The relationship is really warming up between these two countries, and Jewish Indians here have been preparing more. This is more than just business. This is more than just a visit. It's very, very important. We have about 85,000 Jews of Indian origin here in Israel, and these are numbers from the Indian embassy here. And although it's not as large and not as connected perhaps to India as the communities are in the US and in the UK, many here really still maintain a strong cultural connection. I hope that I'm pointing this out correctly. There's a lot of travel between the two countries. There's a lot of cultural understanding, and tomorrow Prime Minister Modi will hold a rally for the Indian Jewish community here, and about 4,000 to 5,000 people are expected, and he really says he wants to connect with them. There are buses from around the country that are bringing people there.
And Eliaz, you're in fact going to be attending that rally.
Yes, I was invited and I'm going to attend it.
What are the Jewish Indians hoping to hear from Modi at a rally like that?
Well, there's a lot of buzz and excitement because of this historic event. So a lot of people rallied up, promoted it. A lot of people want the connections between Israel and India be deepened even more. Of course, the Jewish Indian community in Israel is decades and decades of living here. They still keep a very close connection to India by traveling, by family relations, by other communication, for example.
We're now seeing that the ceremony at Yad Vashem is in fact underway. Let's take a look.
And their collaborators. The Encore Youth Choir, under the direction of Dafna Ben Yochanan, will open the ceremony with a song, Halicha LeKeisaria, Walk to Caesarea, written by the young poet and parachutist Chana Senesh, who was killed behind enemy lines in Hungary in 1944. Makelat Encore. I am honored to invite the Prime Minister of India to rekindle the eternal flame in the Hall of Remembrance. Ha'ala'at Esh HaTamid. Hityachadut. Identification. As we rekindle the eternal light in this hall of remembrance before the sacred remains of our martyrs, we unite with the blessed memory of 6 million of our people who died a martyr's death at the hands of the German Nazis and their collaborators, of the Jewish communities destroyed in a wicked attempt to eradicate the name and culture of Israel. We remember with veneration the fortitude of the fighters who kindled the sublime flame of rebellion among the besieged masses of the ghettos, the heroic and persistent struggle of the masses of the House of Israel on the threshold of destruction for their human dignity and their Jewish heritage, the righteous among the nations who risked their lives to save Jews from persecution and death. I'm honored to invite Prime Minister Modi to lay the wreath on the stone slab under which the ashes of Holocaust victims from the extermination camps are buried. Hanachat Hazer. Cantor Asher Heinowitz will now recite El Maleh Rachamim, a prayer for the souls of the martyrs.
El Maleh Rachamim, Shochein B'Meromim, Dayan Almanot V'Avi Yetomim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע, מהירים ומזהירים, לנשמות ששת המיליונים, רבבות רבבות אלפי ישראל, אנשים, נשים וטף, שנרצחו, שנשרפו, שנחנקו, שנגברו חיים, שהומתו בכל מיני מיתות משונות ואכזריות, בידי הגרמנים הנאצים ועוזריהם, ושהלכו לעולמם על קידוש השם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר אמן.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony is concluded. Please remain in your places until Prime Minister Modi, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the delegations have left the Hall of Remembrance.
You're just watching the visit by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Israel's Holocaust Museum. Joining me in studio is Eliaz Dandeker, a Jewish Indian historian and writer, as well as our senior defence correspondent Shai Ben-Ari. Watching that ceremony, Eliaz, how do you relate to the Holocaust as a Jewish Indian?
Well, first, as an Israeli, of course, it was brought and raised here. It's a deep connection. Also, I remember the stories of my family that fought in the British Army against the Nazis and the Japanese. And they felt a really deep connection to all of their brethren and sisters around the world, be it from Europe, Africa, or Asia, or otherwise. So, and I know the role that the Indian Jews and India in general took in the Second World War, and actually even saving Jews. So it is a sad occasion filled with pride that they did something to avoid, to change, to save as well.
And now looking at Netanyahu's speech as Modi landed at the airport saying that Israel had waited 70 years for an Indian Prime Minister to arrive here, why did it take so long?
Well, I suppose the complexity of the the Indian subcontinent and the different religions and diversities there, and the disconnection from Pakistan, for example, it made it very difficult in India and in relations with the countries around India to further officially advance the relations between the two countries, even though there were unofficial relations. Only in 1992 there were official relations between the countries. So it's really a delicate situation.
Right. Now, the evolution has been startling. In fact, Shai, we now know that India and Israel see themselves as strategic partners. What is India's interest in investing in defence here in Israel?
Right. Well, India is faced with a lot of security challenges. Of course, there are different challenges you can find on different borders. It often, the classic enemy, you could say, is, of course, Pakistan in the Indian context. And I think you could draw a parallel here in terms of how Israel, the kind of security challenge that faces Israel, when you talk about how Netanyahu always underlines Iran as a sort of international force that's trying to meddle in its affairs using various proxies. You have a similar sort of dynamic when it comes to India and the relationship with Pakistan. A lot of accusations coming from Indian political figures about the role Pakistan plays through different proxies, through its relationships, through its ISI, the Military Intelligence Directorate in Pakistan, operating all sorts of organizations, all sorts of ties to terrorist organizations. For example, Lashkar-e-Taiba, the group which carried out the attacks in Mumbai, which were lethal back in 2008. There were also some Jewish targets in that very infamous attack with the Chabad organizations targeted in Mumbai. You have a similar sort of dynamic there with India pointing its finger at Pakistan, Pakistan using all sorts of proxies to perhaps stir up things in India itself. A similar sort of challenge faced by Israel with Iran, its proxies via Hezbollah and so forth. So I think there's a lot of comparison to be had there.
Right. And Eliaz, I want to bring you back into the conversation at this point. In terms of, we're talking in a broader context about India and its external enemies, but anti-Semitism has been brought up in at least the speeches of the two leaders, and the fact that there's very little in India, even despite the fact that it's a minority.
Well, there was religious tolerance towards the Jews and in general between the Hindus, the Muslims, the Christians, etc. In India, it's one of the only countries, if not the only country, that anti-Semitism did not take root, except during the Spanish Inquisition with the Portuguese around 500, 600 years ago. They persecuted Jews around Goa and Cochin of today. But except that case, it was an external European style of anti-Semitism that was unknown before in the Indian subcontinent and unknown afterwards as well.
So then how do the Jews in India, because the significance of the population is markedly different. There are about 5,000 to 8,000 Jews in India and about 85,000 Indian Jews living in Israel. Right. How do the Jews in India relate to Israel then these days?
Well, there is as I said before, there's a strong connection, mainly because of the family ties, the relations between the two countries. There is the Taglit, for example, that a lot of young Indian Jews come to Israel. Some stay, some serve in the army, and some go back indeed and continue their lives in India. Also in India, the Jews of India took very important and significant parts in the independence of India and Israel, and also during the conflict between Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. They took a really, how to say, conclusive part in it, in establishing even Bangladesh.
Eliaz Dandeker, stay with us. We're going to take a 1-minute break and we'll talk to you on the other side of this as well, to you, Shai. We're going to have a lot more on this. The Indian Prime Minister has landed in Israel, Narendra Modi. It's the first leader of Indian government to visit Israel. We'll be covering his visit across the next 3 days. A lot more after this in 1 minute's time.